Right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are indeed privileged today to have amongst us His Excellency, the Foreign Minister of Afghanistan, Mr. Salahuddin Rabbani, who is not only a distinguished diplomat, but has also held the high mantle of the Chief of the High Peace Council. Now, this is a post which was earlier held by his martyred father, Mr. Durand Baharuddin Rabbani, who was also the president of Afghanistan. So he's a name who is very, very well known into entire Afghanistan for both the jobs that he's done and doing. I must also extend a very warm welcome to the delegation which has come along with the Foreign Minister from Afghanistan, led by our old speaker who came and interacted with us, the Deputy Foreign Minister. And then, of course, the others, the two ladies here who are the Deputy Commerce Minister and the others. And we must also extend a warm welcome to our friend, the Afghan ambassador in India, Mr. Shahida Abdali. And last but not the least, a very warm welcome to the Indian ambassador to Afghanistan, Ambassador Manjeet Vora. Now, the foreign minister's visit comes at a very opportune time, or at a very critical time. That's the time when the US have just announced their foreign policy for Afghanistan, in which they have taken a little different track from the normal and have now named the root cause of the problem in Afghanistan, and that is Pakistan. Now, that has happened for the first time. Equally important is the fact that new policy reaffirms the US desire to help Afghanistan in their endeavor to win their freedom in the proper sense, and also enable them to beat the Taliban. That does not really mean that they have closed all doors for negotiations. As a matter of fact, this kind of an approach perhaps helps them prepare the ground for negotiation, and from where they can move forward should that come about. Now, it remains to be seen that US, which is so very dependent on Pakistan for their ground lines of communication and air lines of communication, is able to force compellence on Pakistan, or it will go the same way as the earlier administrations have gone. Pakistan, on their own part, appears to be giving an impression that they are trying to reconcile with Afghanistan. Now, as to whether that is a sheer tactics and a ruse to ward off the American pressure, or there's a change of heart, that time only will show. But in the meanwhile, while all this is going on, there are other players also, like Iranian, the Russian, the Chinese, who have also jumped into the field and who are flirting with Taliban. The Russians are the only one who have said that they are not doing so. All others are quiet on that. Now, besides that, you also have now a very active element in terms of ISIS, which is taking care of the entire western and the lower Afghanistan, and also they are flirting with Taliban, and Al-Qaeda is again resurfacing in some form. So the entire situation which is there already, which was pretty complex, is becoming more and more complex with all these players jumping into the field. Now, while we will request and we are sure that His Excellency will talk about the security situation in Afghanistan, I am sure he will also touch upon the economic and the political, because they all impinge upon each other and they have a direct bearing on the Afghan situation. We in India, as far as we are concerned, we have a deep and abiding interest, as always, in the future of Afghanistan and the well-being of Afghanistan, because in Afghanistan we have a genuine friend and we want to be absolutely more than genuine with them. And we will do whatever we can do, or whatever is under our command, or what they wish, and they ask us for our help, we would like to extend that to them, because it is important that Afghanistan remains stable. And because if Afghanistan gets destabilized, the entire sector, the entire region gets destabilized. And there are one or two small things more, and that is like the ANA has done a marvelously good job. I must say it's one of the bravest armies in the world, the Afghan National Army, which has withstood the onslaught of Taliban with the very active connivance and support of Pakistan. And it is only to be seen that with the kind of casualties that they are suffering and the attrition that they are taking, and now I believe, alarmingly, I do not know, he will correct us, as to whether the recruitment has dropped. And is there any plans, we've been crying hoarse in the VIF, that the ANA must be upgraded into a proper national army rather than it being left as a constabulary as they have done, perhaps off design, because they are the one who ensure the future safety and security of Afghanistan. With that, once again, Excellency, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you, to the Vivekananda International Foundation, and all the diplomatic staff who've come from the other embassies in this country and who are interested in Afghanistan, and to listen to His Excellency and views. And of course, you have very, very experienced people in their delegation. Later, at the end of it, one can crowd around, I think, after them and talk to them. With that, I'll hand you over to His Excellency, the Foreign Minister of Afghanistan. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Honorable General Nirmal Chandarvich, distinguished delegates, distinguished scholars, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. I'm honored to be here at the Vivekananda International Foundation, and thank you very much, General Vich, for your generous introduction. I'm particularly delighted to be among India's accomplished scholars, strategists, and diplomats today. Our gathering today follows the second meeting of the Afghanistan-India Strategic Partnership Council, which took place yesterday. Her Excellency Minister of External Affairs, Sushma Swaraj, and I co-chaired this meeting and had a wide-ranging discussions on issues of mutual interest and concern as our two governments continue implementing the key objectives of Afghanistan-India Strategic Partnership Agreement. I'm pleased to report that we are satisfied with the progress that 4 working groups have made in the areas of political and security, trade, commerce and environment, investment, development cooperation, and human resource development, education, and culture. The joint statement that was released yesterday highlights the key themes of our discussion, on which I will touch later. I now wish to give you an overview of the recent developments in Afghanistan, including our foreign policy priorities, the status of Afghanistan-India bilateral relations, as well as continued international support for the stabilization and sustainable development of Afghanistan. The National Unity Government defined new objectives of foreign policy and made it more pragmatic in order to promote a new image for Afghanistan. Security, of course, remains a major priority of our foreign policy. So do sustainable development and regional economic integration. The interconnectedness of these priorities on our policy agenda continues to drive our robust engagement and partnership with friends and at the regional and global levels. Our goal is to promote our shared interests, including addressing our common concerns about regional and global security trends, threats that undermine our collective peace and prosperity. That is why Afghanistan's alliances focus on ensuring stability, which provides an enabling regional and global environment for prosperity for all. Ladies and gentlemen, Afghanistan views regional security, peace, and stability as the main prerequisites for the countries of the region to reach their full socio-economic and political potentials. As the land bridge between South Asia and Central Asia, peace and security in Afghanistan should matter for continental Asia. Based on this rationale, we have led the motto of Afghanistan stability equals regional stability to take momentum in the region. Hence, we have explored all options in building trust with our neighbors, extended neighbors, countries of the wider region, and beyond. The process of globalization has shrunk distances among countries to the extent that no longer we have the luxury of disregarding our neighbors' difficulties due to their spillover effects. National problems have become regional challenges fast these days. This requires that regional stakeholders act together in response to address any existing or potential challenges that undermine regional peace and stability. Indeed, building trust and confidence in the region encourages collective response to any of our common challenges. That is why Afghanistan has enhanced collaboration with all countries of the region and beyond through regional organizations and processes, particularly through those with an emphasis on regional and global confidence building, including SCO, SARC, SICA, and Heart of Asia Istanbul process. Ladies and gentlemen, on the Afghanistan-India bilateral cooperation, we have enjoyed unbreakable ties throughout our shared history. We share a common civilization and memory with many cultural ties that provide a solid foundation for the time-tested friendship between our two countries. In this light, we have a common regional interest, and that is to promote and bolster regional security so that we, alongside others, advance our common economic goals for a sustainable, secure future. We signed the Strategic Partnership Agreement in 2011 that took our cooperation to the next level. Under this pact, we have further strengthened our already strong bilateral cooperation in the areas which I highlighted earlier. Progress in each sector will help us reach our common goal of helping ensure peace, stability, and prosperity throughout the region. Yesterday, Her Excellency Minister Swaraj and I agreed to further expand our bilateral cooperation. Afghanistan and India are using all possible routes, including land, air, and sea, to increase trade and commerce. This demonstrates our shared resolve to take advantage of every opportunity to expand our economic cooperation, and that no barriers can reduce commercial exchanges between our two countries. We have signed a motor vehicle agreement, established an air freight corridor between Kabul and Kandahar with New Delhi, agreed to expedite the operationalization of the Chabahar port, and later this month, the India-Afghanistan Trade and Investment Show would provide opportunity for our business communities to meet and explore investment opportunities in Afghanistan and India. These are some of the recent developments, opening up more windows of opportunity to further strengthen our bilateral and strategic ties. India's large-scale infrastructure projects such as Afghanistan's parliament building, the India-Afghanistan Friendship Dam, transmission lines to electrify Kabul, construction of a major part of National Ring Road, as well as thousands of scholarships for Afghan students to study in India, are some of the vital projects implemented with Indian assistance. Indeed, the people of Afghanistan recognize the goodwill and generosity of India and immensely appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, there have been some positive developments with respect to the US foreign policy towards South Asia, which provides us with the new opportunities for trilateral cooperation. The new US policy for Afghanistan and South Asia outlines three fundamental points that Afghanistan has always sought and now welcomes. First, it makes an open-ended commitment to fighting terrorism and violent extremism in Afghanistan and our region. Second, it calls for increased regional cooperation, requesting India to do more in Afghanistan. Third, and a very important point, it emphasizes on sanctuaries of terrorism to be targeted. And this is something that Afghanistan has been mentioning for years. Indeed, the threats of terrorism and violent extremism in Afghanistan and South Asia would have been eliminated long before had terrorists been denied safe havens and institutional support in the region. We have repeatedly brought this to the attention of the international community for a united response. And I'm glad to say that this is taking shape now. Ladies and gentlemen, we should make no distinctions between good and bad terrorists, regardless of who and where they target. This requires, of course, a regional counterterrorism strategy that enjoys broad and deep support for the whole region to fight and eliminate terrorism as a common threat to all of us. Failure to adopt such a strategy and to act on it will have grave implications for the stability and security of our region and the world at large. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcement of the new US Afghanistan policy comes at a time when regional anti-terrorism sentiments are on the rise. Countries of the region have either adopted or are in the process of developing a counter-terrorism strategy to fight the threats and its violent ideology in the region. Our collective response should not only be to fight terrorism, but also to address such common problems as poverty, unemployment, and lack of socioeconomic facilities and opportunities for youth that provide an enabling environment for terrorism. We also appreciate that the new US Afghanistan policy recognizes the importance of an Afghan-owned and Afghan-led peace and reconciliation process. Through the Kabul process, we seek to end war and violence in Afghanistan, provided that Taliban and other armed groups accept our red lines to discontinue violence, respect the Afghan constitution, and support the gains Afghanistan has made in partnership with India and the rest of the international community. In this light, we welcome India's support with our ongoing peace efforts and look forward to further engagement with India on this critical issue. In closing, let me once again emphasize that our ultimate goal is to achieve sustainable peace in Afghanistan. We look forward to working with India, US, and other regional and global stakeholders to end decades of imposed war and violence in Afghanistan. Our collective success in this endeavor will enable us to ensure regional peace and prosperity, and this in turn should help maintain international security. I would like to thank again the WAVE Foundation for hosting us today and look forward to our Q&A session so I hear and benefit from the views of many distinguished scholars and strategists today here in this room. Thank you very much.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we have around 25 minutes for a question-answer session. So we start with Sushant. Please be brief in your questions.
Thank you, sir. I have two very short questions. The first is that after the new US policy, there are overtures which have been made by both Pakistan and Afghanistan to each other, and seems like some kind of a process is likely to start. What are your expectations from this process, which has been tried so many times in the past? Do you think things will change this time around, or it will be the same old story? The second question is about the Russian role in Afghanistan, and reports that the Russians have been hand in glove with the Taliban giving them weapons, and yet are wanting peace and stability in Afghanistan. How does that play out in your view? And finally, if I may, on the Chinese role, could you inform us how much money the Chinese have so far invested in Afghanistan, and whether they will put their money where their mouth is in actually stabilizing the situation in Afghanistan by leaning upon Pakistan to stop its inimical policies in Afghanistan?
Should we go take a few questions and then, or
25 minutes.
Okay.
One by one.
Sure. Well, first of all, let me thank you for these three very important questions. First, on U.S. policy and overtures between Afghanistan and Pakistan. As I said during my speech, that the best or the most important 3 points that this policy outlines is the first, it's not a time-based, it's a condition-based withdrawal from Afghanistan, and it focuses on tackling the issues of terrorism. And the second thing is, of course, something that we have been saying, the safe havens issue. And looking at the recent BRICS declaration statement on the issue of terrorists and terrorist groups, it shows that a regional consensus and international consensus is building on countering terrorism in the region. And I'm sure that countries who supported terrorists or who used terrorists as an instrument of their foreign policy have realized that they are losing friends. And absolutely, I think that requires close cooperation between Afghanistan and those countries. So we have always welcomed sincere commitment, honest support for tackling this issue, for supporting peace and reconciliation in Afghanistan. And this has been a message that we have given to Pakistan. So we will welcome if they sincerely support us in bringing peace and stability to Afghanistan. Second, on the Russian role, Afghanistan has always said that to tackle the issue of terrorists, we have to focus on state-to-state relations. We appreciate the support of all those countries who want to bring peace and stability to Afghanistan, but that has to be done through state relations, through supporting Afghanistan and supporting the institution that has been given the authority from Afghanistan, the High Peace Council, and not through supporting one terrorist group to fight against another terrorist groups. I think that will only deteriorate the situation, and I think the best thing is to support Afghanistan and the Afghan government in bringing peace and stability. On the issue of arming certain groups, there are reports that it has not been confirmed, but of course our message is very clear that we should focus on state-to-state relations and work to solve this issue by cooperating between the two states. On China, how much money they have invested in Afghanistan, I don't have any exact figures, but 380 million, as as Deputy Minister just mentioned, that 380 million. But of course, China, as an important country in the region, as a strategic friend of Pakistan, is in a very good position to put some kind of pressure and to convince Pakistan to support peace and reconciliation in Afghanistan.
Right, Mr. Sinha, kindly gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, introduce yourself when you ask the question, very briefly.
Thank you, General. My name is Shakti Sinha, Minister. I've had the pleasure of living in your country for 3 years. Mr. Hekmat, because I'm an old friend. My point is that my friends in Afghanistan keep telling me that India always looks at Afghanistan through the lens of Pakistan, in the sense that not upsetting Pakistan too much because the USA will get upset, etc. Now with the Trump policy, do you think that India would be mentally willing and capable to step up the kind of assistance without boots on the ground to the ANA, to the MLA? Do you think India is now in a position and willing to really push its weight behind the NSF?
Will you take another question?
Yeah. Take वो तो पीछे ले, पीछे.
Yeah, my name is GB Bagai. I have 2 questions. Number 1 is entirely hypothetical. As Afghanistan has suffered for a long time from foreign interference. If by some means all foreign interference was stopped and it was totally insulated from regional countries, would the state government be able to defeat the Taliban? Second question is on China. What do you think about the One Belt, One Road initiative? Don't you think in the long run it will help cut down, eliminate terrorism from the area through development of the entire area? Also because every time the Chinese build roads, India also wakes up and starts making roads on the border. So it should help the entire region. Thank you.
Should we take
One more. General Chopra.
Okay, I'm General Chopra. I'm a combat veteran of 4 wars. I belong to Aptabad, so I know the Afghan area very well. Excellency, you have a trilateral, China, Pakistan, Afghanistan, to come to an agreement, arrangement, reconciliation, whatever it is. On the other hand, you've got the US, the chief has outlined it, and so have you, who've got this new policy in which they've targeted Pakistan, which is part of your trilateral, and finally India, who's doing its very best to help you. I find an inherent contradiction in this. I can't see all three working together or all three working in different directions. And the last point is, you'll be able to handle the ANSF, the Afghan National Security Forces, all the terrorist groups, 20 of them. If you could get Pakistan, with whom you're now having overtures, to do something to the Haqqani group, you'll find half your problems will be over. And my solution to the Americans is, one mother of all bombs will take care of the Haqqani group. Thank you.
Well, I think that's answered. Yeah. Or do you want more? Okay, sure. Then we will go for another round.
Lady behind you.
Sir, thank you. Just a very short question. The head of the Taliban in Habibatullah is generally seen as being, well, not all that much in command of the whole operation. So essentially, you'll be talking to the Haqqanis. How does that suit you? Second question is, I think a large portion.
Madam, I did not get the first question. What did you say?
The
Haqqani, ultimately we will.
Because the second in command is Sirajuddin Haqqani.
Oh, okay.
So essentially you'll be talking to him, not to Habibatullah, whose power is doubtful. Second is Indian aid. The large aid component is coming to an end. I mean, I think with the Salma Dam and the Parliament project, the larger aid projects are now finishing. In which direction would you want Indian aid now? I mean, I would suggest that it go towards a definite objective, for example, connectivity. So would that be something you would be comfortable with?
Well, thank you very much. I will go with the last question first and answer the others. First, on the Indian support, of course, we are grateful for what India has been doing in the last 16 years in Afghanistan. Of course, this Indian support has always been there with Afghans. It's India-Afghanistan friendship is not a post-September 11 phenomenon. We have historical and cultural ties with this great nation, and that will continue. The aid, of course, we have, as I mentioned yesterday, we embarked on a new development, strategy and programs that India will support the new high-impact development community projects. This is a very good initiative, of course, on bigger and larger projects such as Chabahar, which will ultimately, of course, help Afghanistan find an alternative route for import and export, is also something that we would like India to, of course, expedite that, and we would very much appreciate it, and we have already welcomed that. On meeting with Hibatullah or talks with the armed opponents, our policy is very clear. We have welcomed those who have laid their arms, who have accepted the Afghan constitution, who have cut their ties to terrorist organizations, and who have renounced violence. If these conditions are accepted by Hibatullah or the Taliban or other armed groups, they're welcome. The recent peace agreement with one of the armed groups of Hizb Islami, Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, is a clear demonstration that Afghanistan has kept the doors of peace and reconciliation open to all those who want to join peace and reconciliation. going to the friend who asked that the ANSF and support for, would they be able to, I think this is important that we should continue supporting Afghan Defense Forces. The international community has provided support. Of course, United States has a leading role in supporting our security forces, for which we are grateful. I think that has to continue according to the new strategy. There will be some more advisors coming into Afghanistan to support the armed forces, but it is the Afghan forces who are leading the fight against terrorists, and they're not only fighting for Afghanistan but for the region. I think that has to continue. We have asked our friends in the region to support us both in peace and reconciliation, and both in supporting our forces in equipment and training. I don't see any contradiction in these trilaterals, as long as the aim of these trilaterals and meetings are to bring peace and stability to Afghanistan. I think if one country or many countries in the region can join hand in bringing peace, I think our aim is to build consensus in the region. And let's not forget that the new US policy, well, it looks like mainly focused on military, but no, it also has a very important element of reconciliation with opponents. And this has been our position. We have always said that the problem of Afghanistan cannot be solved solely by military means. It has to have a negotiated settlement. All wars have ended in negotiation, and this is not an exception. We have to work to bring peace and stability through negotiations. And I don't see that India looks towards Afghanistan through the lens of Pakistan. I think we have had very good relations, and that will continue.
Okay. Jal Sharma.
So, my name is Lieutenant Rakesh Sharma. So I have two small questions. One is, what is your objections to the fence being erected by the Pakis along the Durand line? It will avoid the sanctuaries and crossing across the Durand line and coming people targeting you. The fence may be an advantage to you in many ways, then be a disadvantage in combating terrorism which comes across the Durand lines. Though of course it splits the Pakhtun nation into two, that's a separate issue, but it may be advantage. And second is, instead of sporadic aid, like the question which was asked previously, sporadic aid in form of piecemeal aid that India has been providing, why not we try a method like the PRTs that you had? The Germans had an excellent PRT there, and give a region across to India to develop. So you say there is one portion of the area which India takes on, and it be high visibility project instead of taking isolated one dam, one hospital, one school, which actually doesn't have the same kind of impact what the Germans had when they had the provincial reconstruction teams.
Yeah, last one. Yes. Come to you.
I'm Sanjeev Tripathi. I'm former chief of R&AW. Excellency, you will agree that besides military action, this jihadi terrorism has to be countered at the ideological level also. My question is that what is the present status of growth of radical Islamic ideology in Afghanistan, and what the government is doing to counter it both on the ground and in the cyber world?
Jal Chakravarti. 3 questions.
Excellency, I am Major Chakravarti. First question is on the ISIS. It's gradually establishing itself in Afghanistan. What's your counter to the ISIS? It's calling itself the Khorasan. Some are saying they're disgruntled Taliban, either from Pakistan or this. And the second thing is Iran. What are the role is Iran playing in this entire game? Is not very clear, particularly with the new Trump administration coming. How do you visualize what can Iran do? Of course, we are trying to get the Chabahar route open, but what's your visualization of this?
Well, thank you very much. First, on the building of fences, I think that building walls and fences doesn't solve the problems. I think in order to tackle the problems of terrorism, I think it's better that sincere commitment and sincerely helping Afghanistan and bringing stability, providing, not providing safe havens to terrorists will solve the problem of terrorism. And I think we should build consensus and develop a strategy to tackle this issue. On the issue of PRT, provincial reconstruction teams, this was something that was established in early in 2002 to 2005-06, and then later they were all. There are no more PRTs throughout the country. I think it was. Now it is the local governance. Every province brings through their local government the projects to the central government, and then they are approved. So I think now the chances should be given to the local governance to work on the projects, the development projects in the provinces. I don't think that the bigger projects such as Salma Dam or Afghanistan India Friendship Dam and Parliament building, they are isolated projects. They are very big projects, and we have benefited a lot. We continue to. I think they have helped us in many ways. We encourage, and first of all, we are grateful, profoundly grateful for this support. We encourage the continuation of these projects, and we hope that we will see more of bigger projects in Afghanistan by our Indian friends. The ideology or radical ideology, of course, it's not just a problem for Afghanistan, it's a problem for the region, and that requires that we should have a consensus to fight these extremists and terrorists. What Afghanistan is doing, we are again in the process. We are working with the region. We are working with trying to build consensus to come up with a strategy to fight this jointly. On ISIS, there is no doubt that there is pockets of armed groups who call themselves ISIS or Daesh, and we have seen signs in some areas in Afghanistan. It started from the east, but then we saw some signs in the north and northeast of the country. I think that is again an issue that there is no doubt that this is also an outside phenomenon in Afghanistan. It's not from Afghanistan. So we have to work for this and against this. On Iran, Iran has been playing an important role in Afghanistan, and I think we not only to Iran but with all other countries in the region, our message is that we should work with the Afghan government to bring peace and stability to Afghanistan. So we recently have embarked on negotiations. There are committees working on different issues with Iran and Afghanistan, and we hope to continue working. And also we would like to work with not only Iran but other Central Asian countries to bring peace and stability to Afghanistan.
Right.
Mr. Rabbani, Smita Sharma, I'm a journalist. Just wanted to ask, going by the reports, we are looking at perhaps an addition of around 4,000 troops, a number not specified by Mr. Trump. Will that really be any help in stabilizing the ground situation that seems to be worsening by the day? Also, you said that you've requested regional partners to provide you with more defense equipment. Have you requested India for more aircrafts, given the fact that the air combat, in fact, strength of the Afghan forces is pretty weak? And finally, is Mr. Trump really on the same page with your government, with India, in the assessment that it's not ISIS, but it's Taliban and the other forces that are the bigger threats in Afghanistan?
Last gentleman there.
Thank you. My name is Yogendra Kumar. Your Excellency, I had the privilege of meeting you and your illustrious father in Dushanbe when I was ambassador in 2002. My question actually is this. To what extent do you think there is a possibility of the northern route to be functional in the present circumstances? Because we all know that the Americans feel the pressure of the Pakistanis when they decide to cut off the supplies to Afghanistan, armed supplies. Thank you.
One more question, then we go to the next set. General Ahuja here. I'll come to. I've noted all.
I'm General Ahuja. So my question is that what is the vision that you have for the development and force structuring of your armed forces. I would just like to amplify it. Just the previous question that was asked was that would you be looking for aircraft? This question was just asked. It's one thing to have small arms and weapons to fight the terrorists. They can be changed periodically. But it's something totally different when you look for heavier weapons for army, for your air force, because that would decide what direction would your armed forces go and what would be their association for next 30, 40 years. It will be an inevitable relationship. Today you would have options. Options of Western arms, options of regional arms available. Now, what is your thought process in taking this direction as far as structuring of your armed forces is concerned?
Again, I will go with start from the last question on the issue of the armed forces. What vision do we have for our armed forces? Again, I'm not a military strategist or a military official, but I can say that what a country, what Afghanistan, of course, needs at this time. We do need an air force, and that air force is beginning to take shape. Until a few years ago, we did not have enough or very few military aircrafts. Now we do have, and thanks to just recent provision of 4 Mi-25 helicopters by our Indian friends at the time that Afghanistan needed, it came, and also, of course, the US is providing different types of aircrafts to the Afghan Air Force, which are, of course, needed very much. We continue to, of course, focus on our armed forces. It is important that Afghanistan should have a strong armed forces to fight these terrorists in Afghanistan, and of course to secure our borders. On the possibility of northern route, I really don't, I did not get, maybe you wanted the if you could clarify. I hope that it will be, we are, that it will be functional, and it is something that we should have an alternative route. So we certainly, of course, agree with that. On the forces, whether for the new or the extra forces in Afghanistan will help, I think it will certainly help, but again, it's the Afghan forces who are really in the theater, who really fight against the enemies, the terrorists and the terrorist groups in Afghanistan. There is no doubt that with the consultation, of course, of the Afghan government, the new U.S. strategy was announced. They have listened to the Afghans, the U.S. commanders in Afghanistan, and this new strategy was announced. So certainly, of course, we are working very closely, and at the same time, while we are focusing on the military side of this strategy, we are also very much focused on reconciliation and opening the doors of peace to those who want to come and join the peace and reconciliation. I think
indicating now.
We're going to the airport. I think maybe.
Okay, one last.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
So I'm.
How much time do we have, if I may ask?
I'm Tilak Divesha. I'm an author. I've just written a book on Pakistan. One of the major problems that Pakistan has is water, the looming water crisis. And the Kabul River contributes about 16 to 17 million acre-feet of water, which Pakistan has factored at its own. We understand that Afghanistan is planning to build several dams on the Kabul River and store about 4 million acre-feet of water. What is the state of play of the construction of these dams? And have there been negotiations with Pakistan on the impact that this will have on Pakistan's agriculture? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Ambassador Sajjanar. And one more question.
Ashok Sajjanha, former ambassador. Mr. Minister, you mentioned in your presentation also that there are a large number of initiatives and structures and formats in which discussions on peace and security in Afghanistan is taking place. You mentioned SCO, you mentioned SICA, you mentioned the Heart of Asia initiative. Now there are several others, you know, the Moscow format is there, the Kabul process is there, there is the Quad process, Tajikistan, China, Afghanistan, Pakistan, so many of them. My question to you is, which out of these do you think, in your view, is the most useful, the most productive? And secondly, do you think that such a large number of structures is helpful, or because there is an overlapping membership in large number of them? Heart of Asia, SCO, SICA, there's an overlapping membership. So does this multiplicity of initiatives, is it helpful, or should it, do you think it should be brought down so that it can be, you know, a few of them which can be more effective and more productive? Thank you.
Right, the very last question, Srinjay. And ladies and gentlemen, rest for next time, sorry, next time.
Your Excellency, two things. All this has happened with President Trump saying what he has done. Has there been any change? Do you have fewer safe havens in Pakistan at this point? Fewer terrorists crossing into Afghanistan at this point? And secondly, sir, what military equipment, apart from those helicopters in the past, have you sought from India to fight terror?
Well, thank you very much. First, I will go on the question that Ambassador raised about the different kind of processes, peace processes. I would say one thing, and I agree with you, as there is a saying that too many cooks spoil the broth. So definitely, I think if there are too many cooks in the kitchen, things will not, you know, we will not be able to cook the kind of meal that we need. There is absolutely no doubt that Kabul process, QCG 6+1, there are other processes also which are important, but we have we recently started the Kabul process. Of course, for the QCG, or the Quadrilateral Coordination Group meetings, it started off very well. We managed to finalize a roadmap, but unfortunately, when the time came to deliver, unfortunately, we did not get the kind of, you know, response that we all expected. Of course, Kabul process, the aim of the Kabul process is that the ownership and leadership of the peace process should be, you know, in the hands of Afghans. And only a process that is led by Afghans and owned by Afghans can succeed. But having said that, I must also say that we do need the regional consensus, the international consensus for peace in Afghanistan, and cooperation of the regional countries, for the sincere commitment and cooperation of the regional countries for peace and reconciliation. Which one of these processes is more productive? I think we can see that, you know, the Kabul process that has started, if really countries in the region support us, that is the most important one. And in order to build consensus, I think the 6+1, which is a very effective regional consultative mechanism on important issues, is an important mechanism which we very much hope to hold at the foreign ministerial level, at the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. I hope that that will take place. Of course, Heart of Asia is a confidence-building measure. It's a confidence-building. There are certain, you know, confidence-building measures, and this is important. So we do think that ultimately all the countries who want to play a part, who want to play a part in stability of Afghanistan and bringing peace and stability, they have to work with the Afghan government and support the Afghan initiative, and support the institution that was authorized by the Afghans, which is called the High Peace Council. And only working through the Afghan initiative, we could guarantee the success of all these initiatives. On the water crisis, we have, formally, there hasn't been any discussions, but there are some talks about the Kunar River, which is a river that goes in Kunar province and shared by both Afghanistan and Pakistan. A dam could be built to share the, that's something that we could talk. We also have some other programs to work with our other countries in the region, and we hope that we will be able to find and work with them in order to benefit from these rivers jointly or mutually. Has there been a change in safe havens after the announcement of US strategy? I think it's too early to say this, but we hope that as we move, we will see a change, and we see that those countries are really sincere, and they work with Afghanistan and with Afghanistan to bring peace and stability. I thank you very much. I wish I had time to sit with you and talk more and benefit from your views from this distinguished audience whom I respect a lot. But as General Vich said, maybe next time, I will certainly come next time and sit with you and spend some more time to learn from you and benefit from your views. I thank you very much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we just had a very fascinating talk by the Honorable Foreign Minister, and it's very clear from their talk that they have a very strong resolve, which they displayed all along their struggle, and foiled all attempts of their worthy neighbor to make Afghanistan into their backyard. And also, we are in India proud of our friendship with them, and also proud of Afghan nationalism. That stands out very, very clearly. If you ask an Afghan whether you are a Tajik or a Pashtun or anything else, his reply would be an Afghan. He will not say Tajik or a Pashtun. That's something which lots of countries in the world need to learn from them. So we have a very great faith in their destiny, and I'm sure they will do exceedingly well as the time goes by. And with that, I'd like to once again thank the Honorable Foreign Minister, his very strong group of the delegation which has come with them, each and every one of you. And it's been a pleasure for us to receive you here. And may I, Your Excellency, have the pleasure of presenting you our memento. We talked of Swami Vivekananda down below. I'd also like to present you our